I would like to cover a few housekeeping rules. All of you have been muted upon entry to avoid any noise disturbance. But as we go through the questionnaire, please do send any questions using the chat function. We will address these questions at the end of the webinar, where we have allocated some room for Q&A. And this webinar is being recorded and will be sent around with the slides around after the event. We are hosting this webinar to help to respond to 2022 CDP Climate Change Questionnaire. Today, we'll go through the whole questionnaire and the disclosure timelines, as well as some guidance and resources available for all of you to leverage on. This is our agenda for today. So you will firstly hear from BEC about the background of this initiative. Next, we'll provide you with a brief introduction to CDP and our disclosure model. Then we'll dive into our questionnaire, and I will share some important deadlines and tips on getting started. And in the end, it will be the Q&A section. Today, you will be hearing from several personnel. To start off, Mr. Merlin, Head of Policy and Research from BEC, will give us some background about this initiative. Next, Mr. Dennis Wan, our regional lead of the corporate engagement team in CDP Hong Kong office, will give you a quick introduction to CDP and why disclose to CDP. And my name is Bruno Lang, and I'm account manager sitting in CDP Hong Kong office. I work closely with BEC and other companies in Southeast Asia and Oceania region to facilitate engagement and utilize data collected from different stakeholders to work environmental stewardship. Now, without further ado, let me pass the time to Merlin.
Okay. Thank you, Bruno. You can hear me well, right? Yes. I assume I can be heard. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Merlin. I'm actually pretty new to the BEC as well. It's my second month into the job as the new head of policy and research. My previous career has been largely with the governments and also regional development. So I need to learn also very much from all of you in the future. Actually, I mean, in my past experience, I already worked with CDP quite a lot, but not on the business stream, but more like on the city level climate disclosure. So I highly recommend this collaboration with CDP this time. And back to today's webinar is actually, as you can see from the slide, is supported by the BEC Low Carbon Charter, which was launched in 2019 to mobilize businesses towards Hong Kong's long-term decarbonization through their pledge to set and achieve carbon reduction targets. Companies in companies in the property and construction sector were the initial audience because of their significant contribution to carbon emissions in Hong Kong. But since 2020, the charter was already expanded to welcome businesses and organizations from all sectors in Hong Kong to join. As of now, I think the number of signatories is over 100. So today's webinar is actually part of the carbon disclosure program. We partnered together with HSBC and also CDP with two main purposes, I would say. One is really to encourage some of our signatories who have not started the carbon disclosure journey to take this opportunity to try and see the experience. And secondly, I mean, by having more entities and signatories to join this disclosure journey, we would want to help our charter to grow and become more robust and demonstrate collective efforts that the Hong Kong business sectors are trying to show. With my experience, I think the carbon or climate disclosure is important in a sense that through transparency, it can actually really show credibility and actually track the progress of how your company or how the charter as a whole can basically tell the business sector what we are doing to support the net zero transition. Bruno, maybe you can move to the next slide. I actually will not speak further because actually most of our participants here are already signatories, and I assume you may even know more than I do about the charter. But one thing I would want to point out is that the low carbon charter was started with a purpose to support low carbon transition. But all we know, I mean, through 2021 and now 2022, the narrative and the global trend has been talking about net zero transition, and the Hong Kong government has set the target of carbon neutrality by 2050. And in the longer run, our charter and our signatories, we also want to mobilize everyone going forward to this net zero transition. So here I just put down two more events that may be of interest. So BEC, like every half year, we organize Enviro series conferences. And actually the next one is, I think, yeah, in 10 days. And the topic is about driving business ambition into action for net zero Hong Kong. I personally think it's a sort of a good opportunity to see how different players in Hong Kong businesses are responding to the international call for net zero transition. Online registration is free, so please check it out. And again, because today I'm not talking more about the low carbon charter, and the charter has moved towards actually finishing the third year, and we will be organizing a brief webinar to inform our signatories, interest participants about the progress of the charter and related projects, as well as the international trend. We will notify our signatories through email, and or if you have particular interest, please feel free to get in touch with Dennis. And I think I would just stop here because today, the host is CDP, and I will pass back the floor to Bruno. Thank you.
Thank you, Merlin. It's an honor to partner with BEC to engage with our local companies and possibly get some of you to start your CDP disclosure journey. Now, may I pass the time to Dennis to give us an overview of CDP. Dennis? Hi, Dennis, can you hear me?
I'm here to tell you about CDP and to thank BEC very much for sponsoring the initiative to encourage you guys to disclose through CDP. The overarching message of what I'm about to tell you, apart from the background of CDP, is that the tool that CDP offers you is disclosure, and disclosure really is the tool with which we are going to save the world. It is nothing short of that. CDP is the largest environmental data repository in the world. I'll tell you a little bit about the history, some of the numbers that we've built up over the years, but this particular slide, which I'm sure that you will have later provided to you, you'll be able to recap and see some of those things. But we're going to touch on all of these things through the next slides. So if we could go on. Right. I said that disclosure is the way that you guys are going to save the world. You all represent major companies, significant players in the Hong Kong and Asian market here. CDP is a global disclosure system. Over the years, 20 years that CDP has existed, we have signed up many institutional investors who are very interested in disclosing companies because they invest in them. Some of the numbers up there say over 680. It's now 700 institutional investors, assets under management of over $130 trillion. That's twice global GDP. They have asked for the information to be disclosed from some 13,000 or more companies in the past year. If you add up all of the global market capitalization of those companies, that's over 64% of the world's market capitalization. So that's an awful lot of companies who are already disclosing the journey that you guys are thinking to start on. Many cities and states and regions as well over 1,000 cities and states and regions. If you think about how many people live in the locations which disclose the CDP, we're talking a significant percentage of the world's population. So that is how centralized and global a journey you are about to start on if you start disclosing to CDP. Move on. If you disclose to us, then what you'll be disclosing is data. And by the time that you have disclosed your data to CDP and we are able to centralize it, then you will find yourself basically at the heart of the environmental data which is assembled in the world. If you think about it and you think about the terrors that the world is facing right now, you know some of those headline numbers: 1.5%, 1.5 degrees of warming that we're looking at in the face here, possibly exceeding that to 2 to 2.7. You hear all of that, but we don't really have a vision of where we're all at. But if you, as companies, are able to contribute your data to one central place, then we together will be building a vision of how we as an economy are all doing. We'll be able to build our own dashboard through all of that data, and then we all together will be able to make better decisions. On the page here are some of the parties who rely on CDP data. There are more of those out there as well. There are governments who rely on CDP data. There are regulators who rely on CDP data. So you'll really be doing a service to a corporate citizenship service by all joining in with your data disclosed to this one place. Next slide, please. Not only is your data going to be at the heart of the disclosure system of the world, but actually by the time you start hearing the letters CDP, you will hear us and notice us everywhere. We've been here 22 years. CDP has existed a lot longer than ESG was ever a trendy topic. You will start noticing when you look at and study TCFD, when you hear about science-based targets, that we are either the founding members of some of these organizations, or we run the knowledge hub of these things. Down the bottom right there, then we were the secretariat for the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, which is now merging into the ISSB. The basic message of this slide is actually conveying to you that you've heard about the alphabet soup of ESG and how it's very confusing and everything's moving all the time. There's really only 3 letters that you need to know: CDP. If you join in and disclose to CDP, you will be at the heart of the global disclosure ecosystem as well. And we will, in fact, be able to guide you along with everything that you need to know. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's where you find out how exactly it works and what it is that you're signing up to. You guys are companies. You're companies, and you're in the middle there. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but or if somebody could wave a cursor at that. Listed companies and suppliers. That's where you guys are. You're companies. You have a bigger impact on the world's climate, on the world's water, on the world's forests than any single person does. All of us who are on this call right now are all well-meaning, educated people. We all try and save our plastic. We all try and recycle. We all try and do the right thing. But we can't do anything at the size and amplification that your company can do it as. Your company has an impact, and when all added together, it will have a major impact on climate change, on water security, on forests. And when you are considering whether you should be disclosing or not, then you think about who's asking you to disclose. So the history of CDP was that we realized that companies and suppliers actually were of great interest to their investors. So the investors in the top left there, that's where you saw that number of 700 asset managers with $130 trillion of money asking companies to disclose. When you saw supply chain members, you saw 280 supply chain leaders, major corporations in the world with massive supply chains, of which you might be part of them, with $6.5 trillion of purchasing power. they were customers of supply chains who were also interested in what their supply chains were doing. So when these authorities ask their investee companies or ask their supply chains, please can you disclose, then the investee companies and the supply chain companies then think, well, you know what, someone's really interested in this. And so that's when they can disclose through our questionnaires. What our disclosure method is basically a questionnaire, which simplifies all of this climate change terror that you know of and all of the literature and all of the science down into questions. You answer questions on climate change, you answer questions on water security, you answer questions on forest, and then the answers to that, in alignment with TCFD, if you were worried about how do you comply with that, will feed into the CDP data. And the CDP data will then be provided back to whoever asked for it in the first place. There's another party that's very interested in asking for this information right now. More and more governments are asking for it. Central banks are asking for it. The Bank of France, the Central Bank of France, has recently agreed to be a requesting authority with CDP. We have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and frankly, more and more regulators and banks are going to be interested in this stuff as well. So if there's another thing that you want to think about, is that the offer that BEC is sponsoring for you now to just get started before everyone tells you to get started is a way for you to get ahead of the regulation that is coming. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what's going to happen at the time that you finish the questionnaire? When you finish the questionnaire, then you will get a rating as well. You will get a rating based upon this sort of scale that CDP has pioneered. If you manage to answer all of the questions, at least have a good go. Have a good go at all of the questions that are answered to you. What that's going to do is make you think, you know what, I don't know everything about my company. I really don't. And in some cases, it's going to make you think, oh my gosh, my company is not doing the right thing. But the right way to react to that realization is, you know what, my company could do better. More around my company could become aware of what it is that we're missing. And once your company becomes aware, then at the next level, then you start managing the problems that you've got, and you go up and up the scale of rating that CDP will give you as to how you were doing at your environmental stewardship. So I think that you were said it was the word journey was mentioned somewhere at the beginning there. That's what disclosure is. Disclosure is the first step to you looking in the mirror and then striving to get better towards leadership. Now, just so that you can understand how hard it is to be a leader in this particular industry, 13,000 companies disclosed to CDP in 2021. 200 got leadership level, made it to the A list. So it's not this is not a competitive exam. This is in fact a team sport where we are all trying to do the right thing for the environment here. But you're going to have to start somewhere. Not everyone's going to score an A at the beginning there, but everybody can strive towards doing better. Next slide. Okay, that scoring that I just went through there, just to be clear here, we are not the only scorer in the market here, though I would suggest to you that we've been doing this for an awful lot longer than most. Okay, 22 years we've been here. ESG has been trendy for 2 or 3. There's a lot of raters on the screen there who are in there also rating and giving scores. They are doing it for profit. This is an independent survey that was done, and guess who's the best? Guess who draws out the best information according to an independent assessment, and guess who's the one not-for-profit on that list? CDP is the one not-for-profit NGO who does this kind of work. Next slide. Okay, so I think I'm getting to the end of my slides. I think this is another illustration of the journey that you will be going on, the disclosure journey that you will be starting on. If you start with CDP, and our tagline is, of course, disclosure, insight, action, because disclosure will make you look at what you're doing. We will be able to not just say, what are you doing? We will be able, with gathering all of this information, to share insights with you all, share benchmarking with you all, share how all of this makes where you rank, give you ideas, because you'll be able to compare with your peers, and then you're going to take action. And by the time you're on this journey, then it's just going to feel better and better. Once you've figured out what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're missing, and you disclose it openly, then you'll be wanting to make your way on this journey of reporting, on collaboration, to set a science-based target so that you are in line with the world's capability to hit 1.5 degrees, which is absolutely crucial. By the time you look at that science and you realize what the impact on the world will, the difference in the world between 1.5 and 2 degrees, then trust me, you're going to want to be part of hitting 1.5 degrees with all of us. So that's kind of the journey that you can go on if you will start disclosing with CDP now. Do we have another slide? You're not alone. To be quite clear here, you are not alone. Never mind mandatory disclosure coming at you from every angle and everyone showing interest right now. Let me just show you here the kind of numbers of companies that are disclosing through CDP now. And if you would just care to look at the way that some of those country-specific graphs have been growing over the past couple of years. China certainly over there on the right, certainly because of requesting authorities asking their supply chain members or supply chain companies to disclose. That's practically doubled over the past 2 years. Now, Hong Kong there, a little box there, which is where most of us are, not growing quite so fast. But we really, really look forward to BEC being able to encourage you guys to grow those numbers so that Hong Kong can be part of the journey too. Do we have another slide?
No, that's the last slide.
This is excellent because I'm afraid my battery is about to die.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Dennis. So that's the overview of our of CDP and why you should start disclosing. And now please bear with me for the next 20 minutes because you're about to see what exactly you may be asked and what support you receive from us. So here's an overview of the climate change questionnaire you'll see this year. The questions are TCFD aligned and ask you to provide both qualitative and quantitative information on climate-related governance structures, risks and opportunities, and your environmental footprint. And at the end of the questionnaire, you will see a supply chain module. You will be asked some specific questions about your business relationship with our supply chain member, or in other words, your customer. An example, you will be asked to allocate emissions to your customer in order to help them establish a scope 3 emissions inventory. But in this carbon disclosure program, you do not have to allocate your emissions to BEC, and you can omit this module if the only request you receive comes from BEC. However, you may need to answer this module if another of our supply chain member, for example, Walmart, asks you to do so. And on the right, you can see an overview of all the modules, and I've highlighted 3 modules here. They are C4, targets and performance, C6, emission data, and C10, verification. These modules are selected by us and by BEC because we feel that there are some basic but crucial topics to start disclosing. You can prioritize completing these 3 modules if you do not believe you have the capacity to complete the whole questionnaire. And for some of you who may want to answer more than 3 selected modules, but the full version is too long for you, we offer you a minimum version if your annual revenue is less than 250 minimum euro or USD. As you can see on the right, C9 to C11 and C15 are not included. And there are also far less questions included in the modules here. And when you activate your questionnaire, you will see a question asking if you're eligible for the minimum version, as you can see in the screenshot below. Please note that we will not do any eligibility check, it is all on a trust basis. And if you decide to answer the minimum version, you will not be able to achieve our high score, that is to be listed on A list. As a participant of this program, it's your choice to decide whether to make your response public or non-public. Before you submit, you will be asked to make the decision, also as shown in the screenshot below. If you choose to respond publicly, everyone can find your response on our website. In contrast, only BEC and our scoring partner will have access to your response if you disclose non-publicly. Furthermore, your company scores will not be made publicly available, regardless whether the response itself is public or non-public, unless you are on the A list. However, if you have also received a request from the investor, you will not be able to keep your score private unless you're responding to CDP for the first time. And if you have been disclosing to CDP already, you may wonder what's the implication of this initiative. And below is a table summarizing all possible scenarios if one of you might be in right now. As I've mentioned earlier, you don't have to complete the supply chain module. You don't have to allocate your emissions to BEC. So actually, you will not be required. This program has no implications to you. And even though you are not the primary target of this program, it will be very much appreciated if you can share your disclosure experience with others, as I believe this will be very valuable to those who have never disclosed to CDP. And one thing to consider is that if you are disclosing to CDP non-publicly, BEC will not have access to your response, but your information will only be used for the low carbon charter annual progress report in an aggregate manner. And also, neither your identity nor data provided will be shared with third parties. So the entire submission process is done on a centralized online response system. Please make sure all your inputs are saved, as it will ease your reporting burden if you use our reporting system. And we understand that each company is at different stage of your journey to environmental stewardship, and the framework of the questionnaire will allow you to report as to what stage of journey you're currently in. For example, in questions C4.3, which asks whether you have emissions reduction initiatives, we offer a yes/no pathway. If you select no, then the follow-up questions will not appear. We are not looking for perfection, as we understand companies of different size and sectors have various level of resources to put into sustainability initiatives and reporting. Some companies may face more limitations than others, and we see annual CDP disclosure as a tool to monitor and encourage continuous learning and improvement. We require for both qualitative and quantitative data and can be quite comprehensive, but not all qualitative questions are text heavy, as you can select options from our drop-down. And some questions will require you to upload attachment to our platform. For example, in question C10 verification, we'll ask whether you have had a verification undertaken for your reported emission. If so, you will be asked to upload a copy of your verification statement, and a list of accepted verification standards are available on our website as well. Now, let's start with our first module, governance. So this module intends to capture the governance structure of your company with regard to climate change. So things like whether there is board-level oversight of climate-related issues within your organization, or whether there is a dedicated person responsible for climate-related issues. If yes, we ask you to provide details on what that individual is responsible for, and you can select from the drop-down menu. For example, is he or she responsible for review and guide strategy, or will he or she monitor and oversee progress against goals and targets? The second module is risk and opportunities, which looks at whether your organization has a process for identifying, assessing, and responding to climate-related risks and opportunities, and the type of risk you have identified. For examples like technology, market, regulatory, physical risk, etc. And if you have identified risks and opportunities that have the potential to bring significant financial or strategic impact on your business, you will need to provide you will need to quantify the impact in monetary terms as well. The third module is business strategy, which looks at whether companies have acted upon integrating climate-related issues into your business strategy and financial planning. An example of a question we ask is whether you use a climate-related scenario analysis to inform your strategy, and that is question 3.2. And we also ask whether climate risks and opportunities have influenced your strategy, and if yes, you will also need to provide the details. The fourth module is targets and performance, and focuses on emissions and climate-related targets. These details on emissions reduction initiatives and low carbon products. And this module is also one of the 3 to start with modules. So setting a target is a very critical step, as it provides you direction and structure to any of your environmental strategy. There are 2 types of targets, absolute target and intensity target, and it is of course possible and desirable to have both in place. And apart from targets, it's also important to disclose if you have implemented any emissions reduction initiatives, as they are the actual actions you have taken to reduce emission. And for any initiatives implemented in the reporting year, we will ask you what type of initiatives it is, and also the estimated annual CO2 equivalent savings. And from C5 to C8, we dive into the core part of the climate change questionnaire. In this module, we ask you to report your greenhouse gas emissions, as we believe it is a prerequisite to understanding and reducing your impact. An emissions inventory is the foundation of our disclosure. We always recommend you firstly disclose your Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission, as this data is most easily obtainable. And once you have completed your Scope 1 and 2 emissions inventory, you can then begin evaluating your Scope 3 emissions. Just to give you a brief explanation and understanding of what exactly Scope 1, 2, and 3 emission is. Scope 1 is the direct emissions from combustions in your own business operations. Scope 2 is emissions through purchased energy use. Scope 3 is everything else and cover your value chain, both up and downstream, as well as some activities contingent on business operations. You will also be asked to report any uncertainties or any source of emissions that are not included or excluded, as well as to report your base year and methodology used to calculate your emissions. And in C8 energy module, we request you to report your energy consumption total, and we need to provide a breakdown by renewable and non-renewable sources. We also ask you to provide a breakdown of your fuel consumption by fuel type as well. Now moving to C10 verification, it is about emissions verification. Having your emissions verified should be the next step right after you have calculated your emission. From C10.1a to C10.1c, you will be asked to attach your verification statement in a questionnaire. And we highly recommend companies to verify their emission data since it ensures the quality of data and process disclosed and gives data user further confidence in the accuracy of the data disclosed. Next, we have a module on carbon pricing and your own engagement with your suppliers, customer, or other partners. Carbon pricing, we ask whether any of your operations and activities regulated by a carbon pricing system, like cap and trade, ETS, or carbon tax. Whether there are any carbon pricing regulation which may impact your organization or your strategies in complying with these regulations as well. And for engagement, we ask if you have engaged with your value chain on climate-related issues, for example, suppliers, customer, or other value chain partner. And if yes, you'll be asked to provide more details regarding the type of engagement and also your coverage. And here it comes to our last module, biodiversity. This module is newly added this year. You will need to provide your commitment in this area. For instance, whether you have board level oversight of biodiversity related issues, or whether you assess the impact of your value chain on biodiversity. We also look at whether you have any biodiversity related commitment and whether you have mechanism in place to track your progress against these commitments. And if you manage to submit your response before our scoring deadline, you'll receive an overall score, as mentioned by Dennis, and also a score report. In the report, you can find your overall score and benchmark it against the average performance of companies in your activity group and region. Here you can also find our global average as well. And on the left-hand side, you can see a spider web diagram, which shows all your category scores. This allows you to understand your strength and weakness in environmental disclosure and performance. On the right-hand side, you can see a bar chart. It allows you to benchmark your category score against the activity group average. And companies use this score report to better understand which environmental area you are leading, and also it suggests which aspect may still have room for improvement. And this is how we get disclosure to action and also to tackle environmental challenges. All right, and that's all for the questionnaire. Now let me remind you some important dates. So this is the timeline we are working towards. Now that the questionnaire platform is open, you can begin working you can begin your work anytime now. And most of you should have received an email from CDP already, and with key information and link to register and log into your CDP account. If you haven't, I recommend you have a look in your mailbox, as they may fall through the cracks. The scoring deadline is 27th of July, and you'll receive a score by the end of the year if you manage to submit your response before this date. You will, however, have a second chance to submit your response if you miss this date. Until 28th of September, our response system is still open. You can submit your response after 27th of July, and BEC will also receive your response, but you won't be scored. And now I just have a few more slides on some tips and tricks for disclosure, and then we'll briefly go over some general best practices. Before you get started, you will need to make sure your computer is optimized for our website. I recommend that you use Google Chrome or newer. You can use other browsers or versions, but you may find that there are some functions that do not work. And you should check that pop-up blockers are disabled for our website, and also email from us can get through to your mailbox, as you will receive important messages about your response and account through the response period. You may also like to have your response prepared offline. So actually, our questionnaires is currently available as well. You can download this in the Microsoft Word to draft your response before you submit it on our ORS. But as I've mentioned, you must submit your response on our ORS. And use the CDP questionnaire guidance and attach a free CDP report in a webinar to help you report some of the requested indicators. And in order to access our ORS online response system, you must first be sent the request email, which contains your your activation link. And that's what I've mentioned. Please be reminded to check your mailbox as well. And in the email, there is a lot of guidance where you can follow. And if you follow the activation link, then you will be then prompted to set up your sign-in details. And if you have responded to CDP in the past, it means that you already have a username and password. You can use the details to sign into the website. And if you forgot your old password, you can reset it in the sign-in page as well. So if you want to get a good score for your response, you may want to pay more attention to these slides. First of all, you may want to make sure that you left no empty cells in your response, as one of the fundamental ideas of our questionnaire is disclosing. If you leave a cell blank, you may not be able to get enough points pass through the disclosure level and proceed to the awareness level or management or even leadership level. As we have a standard threshold for each level, you will need to get enough points as to pass through the threshold and proceed to the next level. So even though you may get enough points for a leadership level, you will not be able to pass through and get to be on the A list, even though some of your response may already met our leadership practice. And if you are asked to provide qualitative information, please make sure your response are concise, as long replies will not earn you extra points. Our scoring methodology and reporting guidance are also publicly available. If you want to know what CDP considers the best practice, you can review our management and leadership criteria in the scoring methodology. If you're not sure how to answer certain questions, our reporting guidance can help as well. It helps explain the terms we use in the questionnaire and also provide you some comprehensive technical guidance. And we always encourage you to benchmark against your peers. We actually require all the A-list companies must have their response publicly available so that other companies can learn from their response and grow together. Again, this is a team sport, it's not a competitive exercise. So please feel free to navigate to our website and search some big names. If you have any questions for CDP on questionnaires, here are some useful links. So as I've mentioned, you can find our guidance and scoring methodology in our website, but also I have attached the link here so you can simply go to our guidance after you receive the slides. And you can also consult the FAQ that is covering many topics from the disclosure cycle to the data and even the scoring. And if you're interested in learning more about emissions accounting or science-based target, here are some of the links that you may want to check them out as well. And we have a help center available if you have difficulty accessing or using our response system. Just simply entering a few keywords, you may find the articles that may resolve your problem, or you can contact our technical team directly through the help center as well. And in case you cannot find an answer in both our reporting guidance, scoring methodology, and also help center, you can also send an email to this generic mailbox, sc.bec@cdp.net. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. So in the end, I would just like to do a quick recap, and then we can jump right into the Q&A section. So now you have learned what you will be asked in a questionnaire, and you may be asking yourself already, why should I do this extra work? What exactly may be some tangible benefits of participating in this program? So beyond simply satisfying BEC or other stakeholders' requests, there are some other tangible benefits. So disclosing to CDP help improve your reputation by showing your commitment in environmental management transparently to various of your stakeholders. And as more and more companies are disclosing to us, you may be able to find how your peers are performing on our website as well. As we'll turn your response into a letter score, you can just easily benchmark your performance against your peers and know your current positions within the industry. Furthermore, as you can work through the questionnaire, you will have to think through your entire business model, which will give you the ability to uncover risk and discover opportunity and increase your operational efficiency eventually. And we also actively engage with policymakers across different countries and regions. We constantly revise our questionnaire as to keep companies up with the best practice. So disclosing the CDP also helps you get prepared for the likely mandatory environmental reporting rules. And last but not least, this program is free for you to participate. And if you couldn't manage to complete the whole questionnaire, as I've mentioned, you can just target those free modules we have prioritized. And also because a partially complete response is better than no response at all. It is a journey from a very basic stage of awareness to achieving low carbon economy transition. And that's all the content for today. So I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you. So now let me look at the chat, see if we have any questions. The CDP supply chain. We have a question from Jenny. For the CDP supply chain module, note that for the first year, supplier can select to fill in a simplified questionnaire. How about second year onwards? Can the supplier still fill in the simplified questionnaire? Or it is mandatory for supplier to fill in the full version of questionnaire? No, you can keep on answering our minimum version questionnaire as long as you meet the eligibility I've just mentioned, which is if your annual revenue is less than 250 million euro or USD, and in HKD it is around 1.96 billion. If you meet that requirement in a second year as well, then you can keep on doing the simplified questionnaire. But if not, you will have to do the full version. From Angel, what would be the process for the company start disclosing publicly with CDP? So maybe I can go back to the slides where Dennis introduced the organization journey. So here is the organization roadmap, and if you wish to start disclosing to CDP and also disclosing publicly, actually whether you wish to disclose publicly or privately, I believe you will go through the same roadmap, although it may not be linear, but it is very similar to this roadmap as well. So if you have very basic understanding, maybe in environmental management area, then you may just want to start checking out our questionnaire and disclose whatever you think you have the capacity to complete. Like if you have already conducted a risk assessment within your own companies, then you may try to complete our C2 risk and opportunities module. Or if you have only just calculate your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, then you may want to try to complete our C4 C6 emission metrics module. So it really depends on your current maturity level in environmental management. And so actually there is no standard pathway for companies to follow as to respond publicly to CDP. It will be very much depends on your own capacity, but I would say just starting the journey would be the most crucial step. So just starting, the very first step will always be the same for every company, that which is just starting disclose to CDP. Okay, next questions from Colin. If a BEC low carbon charter signatory is already making disclosure to CDP, is it expected to continue filling in the low carbon charter annual questionnaire going forward? Yeah, Malin, maybe you can answer this question as well.
Yeah, I already jumped up. Actually, it's a good question, and we have been thinking. So what we are trying to do, I think this may partially answer another question. So our program with CDP for this carbon disclosure program is a 3-year program. So what we are trying to do in the first year is through, depending on how many responses, what we are trying to do is to do some analysis for those responded to CDP and do some comparison with the LCC annual tracking form. And I mean, we are in the direction we hope we can sort of like streamline both. In the future, we hope the entity will only need to respond to one platform. But to be honest, I in our Signatory, there are like very big corporate and there are also SMEs. So for SMEs right now, I can foresee there are some challenges. So we also maintain that option open, but I don't have an absolute answer right now, but we hope to do this analysis within this year after the first trial with CDP with our signatories, and then we will update our Signatory, and we hope to give a very positive answer on that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Okay, moving on to the next question from Adeline. Adeline, sorry if I mispronounced your name. For verification, does it need to be externally third-party verified? Yes, actually, for both a verification statement, and I believe for all, it must be verified by third party as to ensure there's no just to provide more confidence in the verification statement. So yes, it must be externally third party like verified. Okay, and another question from Jenny. I have another question. How the supplier allocates Scope 3 emissions percentage for specific buyer? Is there any guideline? Yes, sure, there is. This is a very good question. Since you don't have to allocate emissions to BEC, so I didn't include one particular slide on teaching you how to allocate your emissions to your to specific buyer here. But basically, the idea is in the supply chain module, you will be asked to allocate your emissions to your buyer using a few key factors. And one of the most commonly used is the revenue you generated from specific buyer. So you will need to calculate, you will need to find out how much you earn from this specific buyer. Then you will need to use that as the denominator, and your denominator will be the total revenue you have for the reporting year. And after you have this fraction, this number, then you will need to multiply it with your Scope 1 or Scope 2 emissions, depending on whether you're allocating your Scope 1 or Scope 2 emissions to specific buyer. And that's how you allocate your emissions to specific buyers. So I believe if your organizations have received a request from another customer, then I believe they will also be hosting a supplier support webinar. And in the webinar, you should be receive more information on how you can allocate your emissions to that. So next question from Shiri. For a qualitative answer, would you advise the participant to improve on the answer to receive a score, or once the answer is submitted, they are fixed? So yeah, that's also another very good question. So actually, the idea of our scoring methodology, we indeed list out some for the 4 level we have in our CDP. We do have list out some requirement in your answer, but we ultimately hope that you get the point for that particular level because you have achieved the requirement at per that level. But I would say definitely if you, because we also ask for some company specific answer in certain questions, like in risk and opportunities, where we ask you to provide more company specific answer regarding the risk identified by your organization. And here, if you could provide the reason why this risk is really specific to your organizations by providing some regional or business specific answer, then it would definitely help you get the point. So just from a scoring perspective, you can get certain points in certain questions by improving your answer. But I would definitely say there are some other questions that you must really achieve something, like for targets and performance, you really need to have a science-based target as to achieve our leadership level. And after the answer are submitted, I believe if your answer submitted after the scoring deadline, yes, then they will be fixed. Angels, sorry, I mean, what's the process after this year free trial if we go for CDP afterwards? Process after this year free trial if we go. Hi, Angel, I'm not sure. Do you mean your organizations would like to disclose to CDP as a self-selected company? Maybe I can make you a presenter so you can unmute yourself. Sorry, just a second. Hi, Angel, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Hi, Angel, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Hello, Bruno. Sorry, I didn't make myself clear enough. My question is, since the CDP program is free in charge this year for companies to participate, but what for next year if our companies do want to disclose our data through CDP? Do we need to pay any fee for that? Yeah, that is my question. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got it now. So actually, disclosing to CDP, normally you will need to pay a admin fee. And the reason why this program is free for you to disclose to CDP is that as you are signatories to BEC, and we BEC are partner up with CDP, and the partnership will already cover your disclosure fee. So if you're still if the only request you received is come from BEC, it meaning that you're a participant of this program, then you will not to pay anything after this year. So as Mernis has mentioned, this is a 3-year program. So in the next 3 years, if the only request you come from you receive is come from BEC, then you don't have to pay anything. But if you also, like maybe let's say in the next year, you receive a request from investor, then you will need to pay. But normally companies that are being requested by investor are companies that are very big in size, and they should be able to afford the admin fee. I hope that addressed your questions. Next one from Jackie. May I ask if CDP check or audit the data in any way? Or does CDP solely rely on participants' verification statements for data accuracy? Yes, that's correct. If you're referring to our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission data, we very much depends on what is provided by companies, so that we strongly that's why we strongly encourage you to also provide your verification statement in the C10 verification module. That's give our data user a further confidence in your data, in the accuracy, both in your accuracy of the data and also the methodology you use internally. Hi, Jonathan. Our company is a signatory of BEC Low Carbon Charter. How will our company benefit from this CDP and BEC collaboration? Yeah, I think I can quickly go back to the wrapped up slides. So if your organizations have never disclosed to CDP, then I believe you will be able to enjoy all these benefits here. Actually, if you also have already disclosed to CDP, you can enjoy this as well. But yeah, if by disclosing to basically, if you join these collaborations, then you will be disclosing to CDP, and by disclosing to CDP, as I've mentioned, by working through the questionnaire, you will be able to identify any risk and opportunities in your business model, as you are really, if you are able to get really like a management grade that is B or B minus, you must have some very solid and comprehensive answer. And also it's simply saying that you have really think through your whole business model. And by just doing this exercise, I believe you can really uncover risk or discover any opportunities that is lie within your own business model. And if any investors is find that just more investors are interested in gaining profit in a long-term way, and if you show that your operations would be much more experience lower risk in the long term, then they may be interested in putting their investment in you as well. So I would say that is one potential benefit. And you can also get ahead of regulations, as you may know, HKEX has introduced, has proposed to include the mandatory TCFD disclosure by 2025. So, and our CDP questionnaire is fully TCFD aligned. By just going through our whole questionnaire, you can have a taste of how it's like to really report all the recommendations as listed out by TCFD. And that would be another benefit as well. Yeah, there's also a couple more, but I think you will need to experience yourself. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Alan, for acting up. Yeah, thanks, Patia, for acting up as well. So do we have more questions?
Bruno.
Yes.
I actually want to further sort of supplement what Jonathan asked. So I mean, just now Bruno already mentioned for companies that have not started reporting to CDP, you get all sorts of these benefits. But for those companies that have already reported to CDP, honestly to say, I think it's like two-level thing we are talking about. Collectively, I think the charter will get more data and information to reflect how Hong Kong businesses are doing. That is collectively. But individually, first, as Bruno mentioned, since you already reported, you don't need to take any actions. Bruno, correct me if I'm wrong. But what we are trying to see is like, because CDP is an important international reporting platform. So in a sense that the the score and the report they tailor-made is quite standardized. And what we are trying to do at BEC, depending on the number of reporting signatories, we are hoping to do some more internal analysis and sort of like further feedback into the low carbon charter, how our businesses are doing particularly. And if your company are in sort of the best case, we may hope to arrange more sharing on that as well. And I think that also like a link to what Priya mentioned, that after all this, we will have after reporting cycle webinar, and what we will do is to also talk to our signatory and also CDP to tailor-make some content for them.
Yeah, thanks, Merlin. That's correct. Okay, we have another question from Eddie. CDP welcome all listed and non-listed companies to join, right? Yes, correct. So if you're listed companies, of course, we definitely encourage you to join. But non-listed companies, you're also very much welcome to join as well. And if you like to just go back to the question, to the minimum version, if you are an SME and you find yourself do not have enough capacity to complete the whole questionnaire, you can always try out our minimum version as long as your annual revenue is less than 250 euro or USD. So do we have more questions? Okay, and Jackie, may I also ask whether the CDP disclosure includes previous year's submission? For example, if we have disclosed data for 2020 and 2021, will the company requesting data be able to see those data in 2022? Oops, sorry. So we have a C0 module where you will provide some background information about the questionnaire, and you will also need to explain that for the data you're providing, which year exactly it is. So normally, what our other companies would do is to provide data from previous years. So it is you will be only providing for 1 year, and if you participate, like disclose to CDP continuously, then our data user will also be able to see your other year's data. But for this year data, normally it's very likely that the data user will only be seeing your 2021 but if your if some of companies, like their financial year ends as maybe 6/30 and they manage to submit their response before the deadline, they can also submit their latest data as well. So it also depends on when your financial year end as well. All right. So now we have all the questions answered. Before maybe any new questions from the chat, I would just like to mention in the appendix, I have attached some guidance on SBTI and also a step-by-step guidance on how you can activate your questionnaire. So it just starts from when you receive your email, then how you can register your account and activate your questionnaire and start disclosing to CDP. So when you receive the slides, feel free to have a look as well. Let me see if we have Jonathan. Yes, these slides will be circulated after the webinar. And if we don't have it, okay. Right. Let's see if we still have some time. Maybe we can wait for 1 more minute, see if we have more questions.
Bruno.
Yes.
I just want to take the room for 1 minute. I just want to highlight again that in the charter, I mean, our relationship is between partnership like signatories and BEC. So what Bruno has presented, we talk about supplier and the buyers is because of the system requirement. But for this program between BEC and all the participants here, we are sort of a partnership. And I just want to highlight this point and don't. I don't want to complicate things. It's more like a partnership thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Thanks for clarifying. Yes, it is between BEC and the signatories. All right, I think we don't have more questions. I'm sorry. If the reporting entirely is a Hong Kong company, but the governance is at group level in the UK, can we report this as part of our governance at Hong Kong level reporting? That's a very good question. Actually, we encourage companies to report at a group level, but you can always communicate with your UK company to see if they can also let you disclose at the subsidiary level as well. We also have these kinds of cases as well. So it is not it is acceptable for CDP. So it really depends on your internal decision. Questions from that Delta. Should we support our data on group basis if we operate in different location? Yes, as I've mentioned, CDP encourage companies to report on a group level, and we also have in our module C9 additional metrics. You will be able to break down your emissions by your business streams as well. So it will be a module that you can provide your metrics if you operate in different location. Yes, you report your data on a group basis, and in the module I've just mentioned, you can report your you can break down your data by business stream or by business location. So yes, you can report your data on group basis. All right. Do we have more questions? If not, thank you everyone for taking your time to participate in today's webinar. And just want to say good luck on preparing for the 2022 disclosure cycle, and hope you have a great rest of the week. Perhaps follow up on earlier questions. Sorry, Pratia, I missed your questions. Yes, they can report on entity level as well, but again, it's an internal decision. it's up to company to decide whether they want to report on a group level or on an entity level. Yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah, thank you everyone.